Well then, here's irony. Facebook has banned a post by NewsScape featuring a small passage from BBC Question Time. It was in a closed members-only group which featured Professor Jordan Peterson's comment on the dangers associated with the UK's current rush to criminalise free speech. And anything else that upsets anyone else who is determined to be upset about, well, something. We'll let that sink in. Facebook banned a video that discusses the dangers to free speech from the growing band of self-appointed censors. We can only assume this curiously arcane decision was a decree from Facebook's Irish Watch Committee. We cannot get Facebook to engage in any sort of official comment or conversation. You never can. Maybe because they fear they are uncomfortably now in breach of so much of the GDPR that the possible fines accumulating would repay the national debts of most EU countries. And the really bad news for Facebook is that they've got the money in the bank to pay it too. Now, please enjoy and be sure to share Professor Peterson's prescience until it gets blue penciled again by the Dublin Thought Police, although the version on YouTube should remain intact. We thank you.
I know in Scotland the police had put up advertisements in the tube encouraging people to turn people in for offensive behavior online. It seems to me, for example, if you're concerned about knife crime, then maybe one of the things you don't want to do is have your police investigating offensive speech. And one of the things I do see happening in the UK as an outsider that's really quite terrifying to me is that there are increasing restrictions put on people's ability to speak forthrightly, and that the consequence of that restriction and the criminalization of what hypothetically constitutes offensive speech is going to be a cure that's so much more worse than the disease that we can hardly imagine it. It's a dreadful thing to see that happening in the UK. And so, I mean, people say things that are reprehensible all the time, but we can't always agree on what they are. But to start to criminalize that is hypothetical.
Are you saying nothing that anybody says should ever be counted as a crime? Racist
well, there's incitement to crime. That should be counted as a crime and has been for a very long time in the British common law tradition. But other than that, you should be very careful about what you regulate as speech. Who's going to regulate it? Who's going to define hate? That's the real issue. It's not that there's not hate. There's plenty of it. The question is who defines hate and how is it prosecuted?
I'm not